Is it going to be televised in the 90s?
Well, you know, the catchphrase, what that was all about, the revolution will not be televised, that was about the fact that the first change that takes place is in your mind. You have to change your mind before you change the way you live and the way you move. So when we said that the revolution will not be televised, we were saying that, like, that the thing that's going to change. But I think that the Black Americans have been the only real diehard Americans here, because we're the only ones who've carried the process through the process. That everyone else has to sort of like skip stages. We're the ones who marched. We're the ones who carried the Bible. We're the ones who carried the flag. We're the ones who tried to go through the courts. And being born American didn't seem to matter, because we were born Americans, but we still had to fight for what we were looking for, and we still had to go through those channels and those.
All right, now I will do it. Welcome. Welcome to another episode of You Left Shit Out. I'm your host, Compton J, and had a little technical difficulty. That's why I started late. Thought I was still having it, but it seems like everything is good. So welcome again to You Left Shit Out. I'm your host today, Compton J, or J, and got a lot to talk about today. No eye candy stories today. Today we're doing stories that either is telling to the crumbling of the imperialist core, or speaking to some sort of oppression or our community. So that's what we're doing today. And I think the focus all of October, in sort of honor of our activist summit this month, there will be a focus on activism. It'll be focused on community stories, unreported stories. So that's going to be the focus, at least for October. It may be going forward with me, but we shall see how it goes. Now, that's not to say I'm not going to cover regular stories, current events, if it's big enough. Like if Joe Biden, gives everybody Medicare for all, I'm going to cover that. So if it's a big story, I'll cover that, but going to try to stay focused on community stories. So let's actually take a look at what we're going to be talking about today. Let me put it up on the screen. So get an update on the Alabama prison strike. So we'll talk about that and talk about a couple of the stories, or maybe one of the stories. And then, believe it or not, the CIA co-ops Harriet Tubman. That statue you see on the graphic, that is the actual statue in front of the CIA. One of 3 statues they have. So we'll cover that story. And then California governor, my home state, California Governor Newsom upholds torture. He vetoes the Mandela Act in California, and he wants to run for president. We're winning, right? And then we'll cover a story that I saw on Cooperation Jackson. I saw that organization kind of retweeted. But funds for aid for Jacksonville water was held up. And we'll cover a story that talks about that. And then let's see, there might be one or two other stories. The Detroit People's Food Co-op is another story we will cover. So those are the stories we're going to cover today. The co-op story is a pretty cool story. So maybe, let me see, because it'll be a quick story. So maybe I'll start with that one. Let's start with the article about Co-op groceries stores expand their mission to equity and food justice. Actually, I might want to hold off on that one. So let's get into the main story here. Oops. 1 second. I'm gonna share a different screen, and let's talk about the Alabama prison strike. And where is it? This one here.
Program. Alabama gets paid on both ends. On the one side, it takes money from the government in order to accommodate inmates, but on the other hand, it uses inmates as slave labor.
My apologies, it's already playing in the window. So, but let's just look at this snippet from TikTok. Kind of talks about one of the stories, just the horrific conditions at the Alabama prison system. So, I always have to say it like that. Let's start with the main story, Alabama prison strike, and just talk about it. So the Alabama prison strike has been going, I believe it's going into its second week, or is in its second week. I'll have to look at the dates to be specifically accurate, but let's start out by watching this video from TikTok of this comrade and how he covers this. Let's listen.
Castillo Vaughn is going viral for his deteriorating medical condition inside an Alabama state prison system that had to remove his internal intestines because they were starving him to death. Castillo's treatment, by the way, is the norm for all inmates, where both men and women that are incarcerated are treated like slaves in order to make cheap furniture and license plates and like shit they can sell on Shopify. Like, I'm not even exaggerating a little bit. The purpose of the Alabama prison system is to incarcerate as many people as possible for free labor. Disguised as a work training program, Alabama gets paid on both ends. On the one side, it takes money from the government in order to accommodate inmates, but on the other hand, it uses inmates as slave labor to make stuff to sell to other prisons and big box retailers. That's an office chair. They're selling office chairs. After Castillo's emergency surgery went viral, inmates in 6 different prisons decided to go on strike. They're not making shit for free anymore. And what did the wardens do? They decided to starve them too. So now they're getting 2 meals a day of this instead of 3. Okay, I exaggerated. Sometimes they get this. And for all the people that are like, oh, I did a little bit of time, my food wasn't that much better than the pictures, just a reminder, they've cut their meals from 3 to 2. 30% of their calories are taken out, and only one of our meals in the morning was cold. The rest of them were hot. Like, we got enough calories to get us over to 2,000. They're now consuming less than 1,000 every day. Like, for fuck's sake, that's just the ends of the bread. Families of inmates have noticed the deteriorating health conditions of their loved ones, and when they complained, this is how the state responded.
Canceling all inmate visitation this weekend, or urging prisoners to update their loved ones with the change. Well, the prisoner stoppages actually are taking place at about half a dozen men's prisons across Alabama. Yesterday, the Department of Corrections announced it is also limiting the number of daily meals for inmates to 2. It claims both the meal limits and visitation cancellation are not retaliation for the strike, but a byproduct of not having enough staff to handle those services without the necessary inmate workers.
Translation, we depend on slave labor so that we can use the profits to hire people to feed them. There's over 122 for-profit prisons in the state of Alabama, and none of them can be investigated for human rights abuses because they're private. And this is the reason why Alabama's so hard up to turn a profit with slave labor. The living conditions for the men and women stuck inside the Alabama prison system were so bad that Wall Street didn't even want to touch them. They didn't care if they were turning a profit. They're like, nah, we're not risking the PR. And there were publicly traded companies like Core Civics that used to own these Alabama prisons that were like, oh man, you guys are taking this shit too far. We're out of here. Like, for fuck's sake, when George Bush Sr. has to file 100.
So he talks about a lawsuit, I believe he goes in there, but it's cut off by the 2 minute and 20-second cutoff on Twitter, so that's why that's cut off. But if you go on TikTok, I'm trying to locate his name, but let me look at that video again. Maybe it's on there and I just didn't see it, because you know how they usually play the name at the end of the video, but it doesn't get to the end of the video. Yeah, let me hit Claire. Let me go to Claire and see if in her caption she has like the name of the person. Because if you're interested in going to watch the whole video, it doesn't. It says KES.LO. That's what it looks like. So if you want to go watch the entire video where he talks about the George Bush part. You can go watch that on TikTok if you have TikTok. But wrong screen. So the caption is, "This is a good primer on the prison inmate strike and Alabama's ghoulish retaliation. This is slavery, and for having the temerity to push back against said slavery, these people are being starved and isolated because slaves can't fight back. That's come on, you're being ridiculous." So let's kind of zero in on that guy in the back, the gentleman in the back seated in the A shirt, the A undershirt. Let's zero in on his story. And let me switch screens that I'm sharing here. Let's share a different screen. Oops, sorry. Let's share this one. Not that one. This one. So, AJ Plus, let's listen or let's read what they say here, and I'll blow up the picture and then just read it on the side here. A black man in Alabama, let me make sure that's showing here. A black man in Alabama prison lost 75 pounds in 1 month after being put back in general prison population after major surgery. Says family cannot walk or stand. Castillo Vaughn is and it's spelled with a K for those that are listening. Castillo spelled with a K. Cannot walk. He's suffering. His suffering comes as people in Alabama prison strike to protest inhumane conditions. Now, what is it called? Trigger warning. The next picture shows the 75 pounds. So if you don't want to see it, I would look away and I'll tell you when it's off the screen. But let's look at that condition, 75 pounds lighter. Oh, shoot. I thought that was the second picture. So I guess I have it in a different place. So I'll show you that right now. So I'll click on it. But it shows him. Again, this is a trigger warning when I get to both pictures here. Okay, here it goes right here. Yeah, that's him. I don't understand how are we able to say American exceptionalism? How are we able to say we're the greatest country in the planet, in existence? All the things that people like to say about this country is so it's so bizarre. Like it's almost like you have to go like this. We're the greatest country in the world to block out, the unhoused and homeless, to block out the police killings. You have to go like this to say that. Like have tunnel vision. Another reason American culture or United States American culture, white subculture, you have to do something. Because how can you say that's going on or this is not like this is not persistent and consistent and a problem? Systemic is a better way of saying it, not a one-off. You go, it's a one-off. That is bad. Let me get a ribbon. Let me put BLM in my profile. One thing. It's not systemic to you. I would say any system that lets one fall through the cracks and end up in this condition, one, needs to be overhauled, if not abolished. I'm just saying, what are we literally talking about? Well, I think now he is in a hospital, but understand their hospitals look different. I think prison hospitals look vastly different. This is just terrible. So I will take that off the screen now, and let's go back to I think it was the first one I was looking at. Oops, got some updated items since then. This is the one we were reading though, and that's him before. You can see the prison bunk beds here in the back. This reeks of plantation. Just looking at this photo. It's how did they dupe so many millions of us? It's a thinking right under our noses the shit is happening, and like this shit is over. Just think about the logic of that. Think about slavery is making money hand over fist. Why would they all of a sudden say, oh, let's outlaw that shit, get rid of it? Why would they do that? What doesn't it make more sense that they would say it's outlawed for everybody over here, but we're reserving the right to keep it for these people, just so they can funnel people back over there? How is it that the same people who were enslaved happen to be the vast majority of the prison population? You tell me, how is that a coincidence? That's just another coincidence, huh? Yeah, years of intense propaganda. To answer my question, years of intense propaganda through television, through movies, through education, through history. It's just terrible. So let's let me bring up the next part of this story, and because I do have an article that kind of gives it. We're going to talk about the update. Let me just make sure I don't miss something else here. Okay, here, yeah, there is one more. So let me share this. This is an important part. Let me back off so I can. Okay, so I'll just post it here so I don't have to reshare. So here's a tweet that talks about there's something that they're doing to the inmates, and then one of the inmates, like one of the worker inmates, I believe, sneaks out to record this video about it, endangering himself. So let's read it. Let me make sure it pops up right. Oh, let me take that off there. My apologies. Is it coming off? It's not. Okay, there we go. So let's take that off, and let's take the banner off too, just to give a little more space to this picture and this video, because there is a video attached once I read this here. And this is coming from It's Going Down News. So IGD _ news. IGD _ news. And let's read it. So Alabama prison officials are attempting to break. Let's blow this up here for the seeing impaired, namely me. I can see it, but I just like to have it a lot bigger. So let me make sure that's looking good here. I'll make myself small and do that. Here, there we go. All right, so I'm in the right spot. Yes, I'm in the right spot. Alabama prison officials are attempting to break the historic strike across Alabama prisons by using prisoners from work release facilities as scabs. And this from the website that I'm getting a lot of this information, or I was tipped off of a lot of this information, is Alabama prisons are death camps, and it's called Free Allah Movement. Free, the word free, ALA, and movement. Free Allah Movement on Twitter if you want to look them up. The hashtag is shutdown ADOC 2022. So now let's look at this video of this prisoner here. So let me pause it because I want to give the proper introduction here. Make sure it's centered in the screen. It is. Alabama prison officials are forcing men at work release facilities to prepare meals for striking prisons. This man secreted himself from the kitchen to give this interview. He feared for his safety and wanted to get the word out. So let's listen to what this inmate is saying here.
Q. They called a bunch of us Q last night. Told me Lieutenant Odell called us Q, so we had to check out. We had no choice.
It's Lieutenant Odell.
And I told him, I said, I'm gonna go over there and mess all kinds of stuff up, and I'm gonna mess up so bad that you're not gonna want me to go back. He said, why ain't you telling me this? I said, because I'm trying to be honest with you. Say me and you the trouble. You put me on that van and send me over there.
And he still forced you to come.
And he still made me come.
All right, now what your name is
It
again?
was either come over here or go to lockup.
LeBron Gregory.
Yeah.
All right, we appreciate you, LeBron Gregory. I'm talking about whatever the consequences of this video may be, you can be assured that we're gonna make sure you all right, because you have just proved our point.
I ain't worried about it. I might be back over here with y'all in a couple of days.
All right, we got you when you come.
I like it here. Fuck you.
You hear the worker solidarity in there? He said, I might be right back with y'all. So if from what I'm piecing together, he is one of the work release people, and they told him he either is going to be, I forget how you said, lock up or something, or he has to go, or he's going to be put in the hole. Or let me instead of saying the wrong thing, let me hear him say that last part again. I forget how he phrased it. 1 second.
We're gonna make sure you all right, because you have just again.
It was either come over here or go to lockup. LeBron.
Lockup. So either do that or go to lockup. From what I can piece together, and he's one of the work release people. The gentleman with the phone, I don't know, but obviously he's showing his face. So if it gets out there that that's why he's saying if it gets out, and you get some sort of retaliation, we got you. That solidarity in the prison. So let's listen again, and for those who may need another second listen, just because the audio may not be as clear, or he may not be speaking as clearly as he can. So let's listen.
Q. They called a bunch of us Q last night. Told me Lieutenant Odell called us Q, so we had to check out. We had no choice.
It's Lieutenant Odell.
And I told him, I said, I'm gonna go over there and mess all kinds of stuff up, and I'm gonna mess up so bad that you're not gonna want me to go back. He said, why ain't you telling me this? I said, because I'm trying to be honest with you. Say me and you the trouble. You put me on that van and send me over there.
And he still forced you to come.
And he still made me come.
All right, now what your name is again?
It was either come over here or go to lockup.
LeBron Gregory.
Yeah.
All right, we appreciate you, LeBron Gregory.
I just gotta say, white dude named LeBron. That's a classic right there. But I think he said LeBron. I'm sure that's what he said is LeBron. So let's finish the video here.
But I'm talking about whatever the consequences of this video may be, you can be assured that we're gonna make sure you all right, because you have just proved our point.
I ain't worried about it. I might be back over here with y'all in a couple of days.
All right, we got you when you come.
I like it here. accused.
So it's amazing what's happening over there. So let's now dive into the article for the details of the story. Let me pull up the link here. So give me one moment. This article is from AL. That's just that's the name is al.com. So I'll show you in just 1 second here. Let's post the article here in the same screen. AI or AL, not AI. That looks like an L. So al.com/news. Here is the article. Oops, what is all this stuff popping up here? I swear I can't get a piece of red. Keep promoting. Alabama prison strike enters second week. Here's what we know. Published on the 3rd, so there might be even more updates since then. Let's close this. So let's read. This is by Savannah Triand Fernandez. I believe that's it. My apologies if it's incorrect. But let's blow this up. And let's put it on the screen here. Or it's actually already blew up. So, all right. So the Alabama prison strike has entered its second week as inmates continue to protest. A little bit here. Sorry about that. It blew up a little bit. The Alabama prison strike has entered its second week as inmates continue to protest the state's parole and sentencing laws and living conditions inside facilities. On September 26, inmates in all Alabama Department of Correction prisons stopped working. So inmates in all Alabama Department of Correction prisons stopped working. Inmates normally do the work in food service, laundry, and other tasks that keeps prisons running. Alabama is one of the only 7 states, including Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Texas, that do not pay inmates for labor. You believe that? Do you think it's a coincidence that Black people who are, I think it was the last 12, 14%, something like that, 16% in the low teens of the population, but we're making in the vast majority of the prison population? You don't think that has any connection to the 13th Amendment? Like, it's so right in our faces. And then on top of that, let me get to the point of this article. On top of that, there's states that don't pay anything. So just blows my mind how that is. Why aren't people in Congress? Why isn't it Democrats who are for humanity, human rights? Why aren't they saying, hey, this shit can't happen no more? Back to the article. Shannon Barlow, an inmate at Limestone Correctional Facility, told WBHM, there's no hope. There's no promise of a future, and we're the ones basically who have been holding the cell up over our own heads all these years, and we're just waking up to the fact that this is wrong. According to WVTM, specific asks for the strikers include the immediate repeal of Alabama's habitual offender law, a repeal of the state's drive-by shooting statute, mandatory parole criteria for that guarantees parole for all eligible inmates, and ending life without parole sentences. Last week, Governor Evie called the demands unreasonable and said she hopes her plans to create 2 new mega prisons, 2 new mega plantations using COVID relief funds will help address some of the inmates' needs. You like that there? So they're going to add 2 new mega plantations, and they're doing it using COVID money. You can't make this shit up. You can't make this shit up. Good Lord. Oh, man. Just right under our noses. You see how... You see the importance of having to criminalize black men? You see the connection to that? You can't just throw people in jail. You have to criminalize them. You have to make them unwanted citizens by the majority of people. So then it's okay if you are inhumane to them. You committed a crime, so it's okay if you eat slop. You committed a crime, so it's okay if we force you to work for these companies and not pay you because you committed a crime. This shit is I mean, and that's on top of it, they're using COVID money. And just as Democrats think we're going to vote this out, the Democrats are fine with this. United States has no standing to talk about human rights abuses. No standing whatsoever in literally the history of humankind. You have no standing. Let's continue with the article. Oops. What is this? Oh, wrong page. Here we go. COVID money to build 2 new plantations. Lord. Oh, Lord. And everybody's just like, oh, it's okay because we've been conditioned to believe criminals deserve this. But people who cause financial crises and cause people to lose their life savings and their homes, those people don't get nothing. Let's see what happens to Brett Favre. But you get caught with some marijuana, you going to jail. Who determines what's a crime? That's what Nick always says. But let's continue with the article. I believe I still have it. I always have to check. Let's continue. Quote, number 1, our goal is for public safety. I believe this is continuing with the governor speaking. Pure and simple. And the demands that they're giving are just unreasonable and would probably require whole other legislation, cannot just be mandated unilaterally. We still got our 2 prisons being built so we can better provide for the safety of the inmates as well as the workers. Meanwhile, end quote. Meanwhile, inmates say corrections workers and officials are taking retaliatory measures against them, including reducing the amount of food they receive from 3 meals a day to 2 and canceling weekend visits due to these stoppages and the impact on staff resources. cruelty. Like, it's almost like they're mimicking their grandfather, the cruelty of slavery, the cruelty of incarceration in the United States is literally the offspring of the cruelty of slavery in the United States. In an interview with AL.com, Diane Caldwell, founder of the advocacy group, Both Sides of the Wall, and a strike organizer, said she believes canceling visitation will increase tensions. Of course. I think canceling visitation will only compound the frustration inside, Caldwell said in an email. These women look forward to seeing their family. This is the only contact they physically have with them, and this is why a lot of them stay out of any trouble. Many families have taken off work, paid for travel and hotels in preparation of visits this weekend, and they abruptly cancel it because they want to punish the men and women inside for exercising our First Amendment rights. You don't have First Amendment rights as a slave, is what they would say. You don't have First Amendment rights. You're a slave, condoned by the Constitution. Quote, they are doing exactly what they have been doing for so long, which is trying to maintain control through loss of privilege for no misconduct, retaliation, and fear. End quote. The Department of Justice sued Alabama in December 2020, alleging the failure to protect prisoners from inmate-on-inmate violence and sexual abuse, failure to protect them from excessive force by staff, and failure to provide safe conditions of confinement violated constitutional provisions or prohibitions on cruelty and unusual punishment. The DOJ just made most of the allegations in the DOJ first made most of the allegations in April 2019 and said at the time of the lawsuit that Alabama had failed to address problems. However, a trial in the case is not expected. You see, the first date says April 2019. You see, it's not expected until 2024. You see how they don't care, the conditions. 5 years. Y'all can go through the shit again for more than 5 years just for us to go in front of a judge. This shit's fucking terrible. Oh, sorry. That's the update. So again, you can check out the article al.com. Let me see. Let me take the link right now and put it in the bio of the video. So I'm going to do that right now. But just to speak on what's happening there, like the response of a citizen that would say, oh, if you don't want to be treated like that, then don't break any laws. Just because, let's take that for face value. There's a lot of layers of that that's just completely wrong, but let's take that for face value. Let's say the person, yeah. Are you telling me at humans in punishing other humans should treat other humans as subhuman? And that's their form of punishment. Like going to prison, restricting your freedom is the punishment. How are you going to prison and getting punishment at the punishment place? This has slavery written all over it. From the conditions from the response of these to the inmates' demands, to the conditions that these inmates are living through, to the amount of time that they're supposed to be waiting for any sort of legislative, or not legislative, but judicial involvement, with their not even expecting a trial to 2024. From the public not really saying anything, not really having an uproar, just like when slavery, not really having a real uproar in the white community about what's going on, largely just keeping quiet. And there was a lot of people protesting, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of white people protesting, but I'm talking about the vast majority just going about their day, sort of like what we're doing with these conditions that's happening to these Alabama prisoners. Because if you label them a prisoner, it kind of alleviates you from having that innate sort of concern for another human. You call them a prisoner, you call them a slave. Oh, they're a slave. They're a slave. So I don't have to have that human emotion, human concern. So let's switch this up here. So the rationalization and justification to treat someone subhuman just like slavery. That's the point. This being made like this shit is, just don't understand why you want to treat people like this way. Let's I do, since this article is a few days old, let's go back to Twitter. See if we can get an update on if there's any new news that has dropped about this story. I want to check and see. Oh, I can retweet this too. So let me retweet this here. My tree. So let's type in Alabama. Okay, I think I got it there. There we go. Alabama. See, I have to always do that. Prison strike. And let's see, like, if there's any sort of updates or anything like that that's going on with this. So, wow. Ours comes up as the top story. Oh, there is one. This video I didn't save, but I did check this video out. It's a very short video, but let me read the caption of the video. In the midst of a historic statewide... Oh, actually, let me make sure it's on the screen correctly. Okie dokie. All right. In the midst of a historic strike, in the midst of a historic statewide prison strike in Alabama, we spoke with prisoner leader Kinetic Justice from a solitary... Oh, that's the name of the person. From prisoner leader Kinetic Justice from a solitary confinement cell where he was transferred to yesterday for his prison strike organizing. Here's a clip from our interview. Stay tuned. So they're interviewing the person, prison leader, Kinetic Justice, and he's in solitary confinement. So let's listen to... It's only 25 seconds, but let's listen. Let me make sure this is turned up here.
I would tell prisoners across the country to understand what we're doing and to link up with one another and understand our economics is what it's about. And together in a nationwide shutdown. Shut all this down and let's cut the money off and make them get it right.
Sounding like a revolutionary person we need out here. And Rome and I talked about this, where we were like, when he was here, we were like, yeah, the people that are unhoused and the people in prison, those are the people we need to recruit for the revolution. So let me play it without the sound, and I'm going to read, because it does have the caption. I'm going to read what it says. I would tell prisoners across the country to understand what we're doing and to link up with one another and understand how economics is what it's all about. And let's get together in a nationwide shutdown. Shut all this down and let's cut the money off and make them get it right. That's what we're saying here on the outside. Shut all this down and let's cut the money off and make them get it right. That's exactly the same thing that we're saying we should be saying out here. And let's continue. That was it. So, Uncut Riots, it looks like that's their video. Let me stop. It says, learn more about the ongoing Alabama prison strike at Unicorn Riot. Sorry, I was trying to make out which word was it. Unicornriot.ninja. Unicornriot.ninja. So that's where that video interview is from. So let's see here. Let's read this one here. Word is Joseph Agee was killed at Dotson Correctional Facility in Alabama prison during a peaceful labor strike where no officers are manning the blocks. This makes the second homicide in 2 days if confirmed. William E. Donaldson. I don't know what I said something else. So Donaldson Correctional Facility. Oh, this is the name of the facility. I'm sorry. William E. Donaldson Correctional Facility. Killed. Oh man. So let's keep going with any other updated trying to just see if there's any updates here. Okay, here we go. Let me pause this and bring this to you here. Okay, so let's look at the video now. I need to take a deep breath. I don't know what this is going to show.
Tell me no.
So let me read. ADOC prison, it's Alabama. So ADOC prison officials are lashing out against Alabama prisoners for their protests and strike against inhumane conditions. This video footage shows one prisoner who has just been thrown in the filthiest cell as retaliation for his part in the statewide peaceful protests. So that's what this video will depict. He's been thrown in a filthy cell as retaliation.
Y'all know. Look how nasty this cell is. I asked for some cleaning supply. They tell me no. Go in or get sprayed with mace, and they're gonna drag me out. Won't give me nothing to clean the toilet out with. Look how nasty the toilet is. And look at this. Look at the water pressure, y'all.
You tell me that's not reminiscent of slave quarters. What do we think slave quarters look like? This is literally slave. This is literally the same thing as a plantation. Slave, just in subhumane slave quarters. Let's continue with the video.
Won't give me nothing to clean the toilet out with. Look how nasty the toilet is. And look at this. Look at the water pressure, y'all. Look. This one don't even work. Toilet flush when they want to flush. Sad, y'all. Report this. Y'all look.
Oh man, it's just terrible, 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 terrible. I'm almost afraid to see the next video here. All right, so let's continue and see if there's any other updates or videos or media that gives us a picture of what's happening. So let's look at this one here. Day 5 of incarcerated people strike in Alabama prison, and ADOC, that's where they're talking about the Alabama prison system, continues holiday schedule feeding. This is breakfast at St. Clair prison this morning. So this is breakfast. You tell me this is not what would a breakfast look like if slavery, there was never a 13th Amendment. This would be the updated version of how they feed slaves. Look, we at least put it on styrofoam. And they get 2 slices of bread. So what I have to say to people who would say, if you don't want to live like this, then don't commit any crime. My response to you is this. It's my response is that no human, for any crime they've done, should be treated as subhumans. Is this part of their rehabilitation program? Ask yourself, why are they calling them correctional facilities? Do you want to correct them and send them back out better people so they won't reoffend? Or are you setting them up to reoffend, to come back, to do some more free labor, to have some more slaves? Slavery has never ended in the United States. So let's maybe do one more, and then we're gonna close out this segment so we can get to these other stories, because this is that's a Rolling Stone story. Right. He makes the point here. Joshua P. makes the point, basically talking about the same, like food. Says Alabama prisons seem to be trying to break the massive prisoner strike by half starving the folks locked up, not doing much to beat the slave labor allegations. Right, and that was the thing that I brought up. This is very reminiscent of slavery. Oh man. Let me see if there's anything latest here. Just make sure. Any other news? Thank you, everybody that's tweeting this out. This is our feed. Just checking to see if there's anything else. I'm gonna retweet you since you retweeted or you posted that. If you're watching this, please share, just like some of our other comrades have done. Please share, as am I. Now, this is an older article, but there is some information I do want to bring up here. Let me see. I got to click on it and bring it back onto this other side here. All right, so this will be the last thing we cover for this segment, and then we'll move on to some of the other stories. Now, this was written the same day by Mansa Musa. This is actually accompanied by a video. That's what this is, but I'll read the small little part that's listed here. But you go watch the video. He interviews one of the reporters, a labor reporter. The name of the person is Mansa Musa. Yes, it's the same name as the famous Mansa Musa. So the Real News Network, and here's the article: Alabama prison strike enters 7th day. Where am I here? Okay, so I'm gonna write screen. All right, like I said, written by Mansa Musa, October 3rd. Written and interview, I should say, by Mansa Musa. So let's read the little write-up they have here. So on Monday, September 26th, incarcerated workers of all major Alabama Department correctional prisons, that's where they get the ADOC, Alabama Department of Corrections, that's where they get the ADOC, prison facilities began a labor strike. The strike is focused on both improving the living conditions of prisoners and demanding changes to Alabama's draconian parole and sentencing laws and practices. A 2020 Justice Department lawsuit found that the Alabama prison system failed to provide adequate protection from prisoner-on-prisoner violence and prisoner-on-prisoner sexual abuse, fails to provide safety and sanitary conditions, and subjects prisoners to excessive force at the hands of prison staff. The Real News Network contributor Michael Sanato, that's the reporter, returns to Rattling the Bar to discuss the issues at play in this prison strike. The labor of Alabama's prisoners not only keeps the facilities that cage them operational, but also contributes to the economies of depressed rural regions of the state. This economic dependence on incarceration is one of the factors driving Alabama's inhumane parole practices. If you need those labor to keep things functioning, you find reasons why not to parole people. Some 97% of parole cases in the state are rejected. 97. Striking prisoners and their loved ones protesting in support from the outside are calling for the repeal of the State Habitual Felony Offender Act, along with other major changes to Alabama's parole and sentencing laws. Current updates on the prisoner strike are being released by the organization Free Alabama Movement. And then remember, if you think back, the Twitter I told you was Free Ala Movement. That's who this organization is. This conversation was recorded on September 27th. So that's the conversation they're talking about. But lots of good information there on the Real News Network. And I think, like I said, we're going to close this segment here. But just terrible situation that's happening over there. Now, what I want to get to is now let's get to the food story. If I can copy address link. And let's now go to the oops. Which one is this? Yes, okay. This is the Detroit People's Food Co-op. Let me make sure I get the name right. Detroit People's Food Co-op. And here is the article there. So let me change this. For everybody. Detroit People's what is it called? Detroit People's Food Co-op. This is actually a pretty good story, really good, interesting story. I believe that's spelled right. I'll correct it if it's not. But this is a very, very, very interesting story. It's over at civileats.com. Co-op grocery stores expand their mission to equity and food justice. And the subtitle, as the country faces unprecedented labor and social upheaval, grocery co-ops are embracing deeper approaches to addressing systemic racism. So we're going to cover this story, Detroit People's Food Co-op, and that's what it's going to be talking about. But first, let's like this video. Glad you're here. Like I was saying, if you didn't catch the beginning, want to start doing more community-focused, community-told stories. So that's the reason why today we're kind of going away from eye candy stories. We're at 165 likes. Great. Let's see if we can get to 175. If we can get to 175 and beyond, that would be great. Subscribe to our Substack. If you haven't done that already, subscribe to our Substack and you'll get notifications of streams like this one, streams like the one last night, streams like the one yesterday, and any unannounced stream like the one I did this past Sunday. Join our Substack and you'll get that notification. The other thing is the JB fundraiser is over. We reached the $5,000. It was actually $5,400. So thank you to everybody who donated. JB did shout out or sent out a tweet yesterday about that. The other thing is the Activist Summit is October 22nd through 23rd. And as of right now, it's only 2 days. But as we said in the stream, I think, yesterday, the summit, we usually start out with 2 days, and we in the past, in the last 3 summit, we ended up doing 3 days because it was just more people we had to schedule than we thought. So let me pull up a graphic here for you to kind of check out the details of this. The Activist Summit there. Activist Summit, October 22nd through 23rd. It's technically, if you see there at the bottom, it's technically the second annual General Strike Summit. So this is technically our second annual General Strike Summit, but the subtitle of the summit is Activist Summit because we're focusing on activists. So if you are an activist, make sure you hit us up. Let me see here. Do we have anything for that? But maybe I'll have it. Oh, right here. You can email us in the subject line, put Activist Summit, and we will correspond with you and see if we can get you added to the summit. Ask you some questions, of course. All right, so let's get back to the subject, or let's get back to the article. Pretty cool story. Let's read. And that's a picture of the location, I believe. Detroit Food Commons. And then it has some of their sponsors there. So Detroit Food Co-op board member Malik Yakini. Yakini, I think that's it. So that's who that is there. So let's read the article. On a corner lot in north end of Detroit, the farming is underway for a Black-led, community-owned grocery cooperative, the first of its type in the city in recent times, set to open in August 2023. So that's a little less than a year from now, maybe 10 months. The Detroit People's Food Co-op will provide the neighborhood residents who are predominantly low and middle income African Americans and have long lacked a high quality nearby grocery store an easy source for healthy food. Awesome. And Malik, executive director of the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network. So that sounds like that's a larger network. And then this is a new co-op, like a store that's opening. So there's a network of people, and he's the executive director. And that's, let me blow this up so you can see this better. And also change, you see it on the screen here. So you can see it a little bit better. Let's close this one. So Malik Yakini, I think that's how you say it. And here's his name right here. Executive director of the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network, the organization behind the co-op, says the grocery store will address food security, but its mission is bigger than that. And here's a quote. The quote. This is the first quote I'm going to read. There's another one over here. You can have a Walmart move into a neighborhood and they can provide plenty of food and address food insecurity, but all the profits are extracted from the community. He explains, what we're trying to do is activate the agency within our community so that people see themselves as having the ability to shape not only the food system, but also the other systems that have influence over their lives. This is something literally we have to, let me take note of this. This is something RBN. I'm going to have Rome reach out. So let me pause here 1 second here to message my RBN comrades the name. Rome, you know about this. We need to get on that. So yeah, if Rome, if you're watching, or anybody watching, we need to get in contact with the Detroit People's Food Co-op, or actually the Detroit. Actually, let me put this in there. The Detroit Black Community Food, the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network. Sorry if I got that kind of butchered that. Here's another one. All right, so now let's continue. That's just an awesome quote from him. And let me read this bigger quote on the side here. We've heard from people from all communities that this movement had given them the pause to discover cooperation. So what's key is not just, oh, we're providing food. It's that we're Walmarts that move in, these big corporations, they're providing, but they're extracting all of the wealth out of the community to these large corporations. Rather than being owned by a corporation, family, or individual, modern day grocery co-ops are owned and managed by the community members who shop there. When people buy in and become member owners, they gain access to financial rewards as well as the right to weigh in on how the co-op is run. Non-owners can shop at the most co-ops as well. That is just awesome. That is just awesome. That is something I would actually like for us as RBN to look into doing, or possibly being part of doing. So yeah, I was just reading a couple of comments. Let's continue with this article. This is just a great idea. I want to do this. Let me put this article in here, my comrades, because this is very important. Who else can I give this to? Who else can I share this with? Sorry, I am taking a pause because I really believe in this this awesome concept and idea here. So I'm sharing it with everybody. All right, so I DM'd a couple of people to kind of, or put in a couple of DMs. All right, so let's continue with the article. There is a long, often hidden history of Black Americans using the co-op model to thrive in the face of systematic racism. Even so, many of the grocery co-ops in the United States today were founded in the 1970s and 80s by educated, affluent white people to provide natural and organic food they couldn't easily find elsewhere, and they're largely served that demographic ever since. And I'll pause there just for a moment so I can brand this segment. Did I put this up earlier? Yeah, so I can brand this segment. All right, so let me keep that up. Love this idea. Where else can I put this here? Oh, right here. Let's continue with the article here. Over the last decade, however, more co-ops rooted in the Black community have taken shape, and the co-op movement as a whole has increasingly shifted its focus from providing natural and organic foods to addressing a different need: the lack of racial equity and food justice. Since 2016, the Food Co-op Initiative, a Minnesota-based organization that advises and supports startup food co-ops. I'm sorry, people. I need to share this. I can't. This is wonderful information. Now, I read this earlier, but I just got an epiphany to even share this. I was just reading it as you know, it's like I'm reporting on it, and instead of as a, this is something that RBN and we can be looking into. So just taking some notes as I'm reading this here. All right, so let me read that second part again, or this part that's highlighted. Since 2016, the Food Co-op Initiative, FCI, a Minnesota-based organization that advises and supports startup food co-ops, has seen the number of BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color led co-ops in its co-ops it supports more than double. From 7 to 17, the overall number of co-ops FCI works with has also grown from 68 to 93. And many establishments not explicitly led by people of color are taking seriously the quest for racial equity. This is wonderful. Let me put a link to this article here. So I'll put a link to this second article that I'm covering in. So that is also in the description box as we speak. You can go there now and get the link to this article. Let's read a little more, and then we're going to close out this segment here. And I think what we're going to cover next is Governor Newsom and the torture thing that he's upholding. So, yeah, we'll go to Governor Newsom next. So, but let's finish reading out a couple of more paragraphs here. A number of factors have driven the co-ops movement's new focus on food justice. Because mainstream establishments like Whole Foods and Walmart's now make organic more reliably available, co-ops are no longer required for that purpose alone, and are well positioned to solve a different problem. In addition, the pandemic revealed the brittleness of the supply chain, and the murder of George Floyd in May 2020 prompted a wider recognition of racial inequity in America inside many white-led institutions. When we're in crisis, we notice with what's inevitable. We notice what's not working, says J.Q. Hanna, FCI's assistant director. We've heard from people from all communities that this movement had given them the pause to discover cooperation. And they're like, oh, we need a different way to do this. Also, the people whose communities were hit hardest were done with trusting the system to solve it. Fed up, end quote. C.E. Pug, the CEO of Co-op Member Association National Co-op Grocers, says there has been a lot of soul searching and reflection among leaders of the grocery co-op movement in recent years. I would say, this is a quote, I would say the movement as a whole is really taking seriously and putting their money where their heart is, and working at least within our organization and with each other to serve a more diverse community, he says. Serving more of the community. While the shift to serving non-white and disadvantaged communities has been happening for years, the national trauma of 2020 really sped things up, says Hannah. Quote, the funding rightly shifted very quickly to putting the money back in the hands of Black organizers to address food sovereignty. End quote, they said. Quote again, those communities were already doing the work, so they were ready for that influx of resources, and it has really exploded things. I'll read this last paragraph here. It talks about some of the organizations. Black-led for the Activist Summit, I'm thinking. Yeah, we're going to reach out to them for the Activist Summit. Yeah. Hang on a second here. I'm sorry, I don't want to forget this. Can we reach out to them for the Activist Summit? All right, thank you everybody for your patience. All right, so let's finish this part up. Black-led Gem City Market launched early in the pandemic in Dayton, Ohio, and a number of other Black-led cooperatives are in the process of opening, including the Detroit People's Co-op, the North Flint, this is also in Detroit, North Flint Food Market, Little Africa Food Co-op in Cleveland, Fertile Ground in Raleigh, and the Sola Food Co-op in South Los Angeles. I'm going to check that out. The National Black Food and Justice Alliance has been a big supporter of these organizations, conveying regular meetings among more than a dozen Black-led groups in the process of starting cooperatives. Yakini says, this is absolutely awesome. This is something I'm going to really push RBN to sort of at least delve more into and report on, because this is, I'll put it, there we go. This is an awesome thing. So yeah. All right, so we're going to be now shifting to the next segment, and that next segment is going to be California governor upholds torture in California prisons when he vetoes the Mandela Act. Let me get the link, and let's put it in the same spot here. To this next segment. How much time I got? I got to remember. Picked up my babies, my daughters, or my daughter. I have one of them with me already. Article is opening. This is from The Sun. So many things popping up. Can't leave me in peace. So this is from The Sun here. All right, so Newsom upholds torture. That is the segment we're switching to now. But first, please like the stream. We've got roughly 100. Wait, got roughly 150 people watching. Let's look at. I just forgot what I was going to say, but let's look at where we are with the likes. So we're at 197. Awesome. Let's see if we can push the 215. See if we can push the 215 with the likes. Again, join our Substack if you aren't already part of it, and you get notifications of streams like this and others. Also, videos that we upload. And also, if you want to be part of the Activist Summit, you're an activist, something like what this past segment I just covered, this last segment I just covered with the Detroit People's Food Co-op. We're going to be reaching out to them, but email us. The subject line, put Activist Summit. All right, let's go to this story. Newsom upholds torture. And this is from The Sun. So the full title is Governor Newsom upholds torture in California prisons with veto of Mandela Act. And let's read a little bit of the article here. It's not a long article, actually, but we'll read some of it. So on Thursday, Governor Newsom vetoed legislation to impose strict limits on the use of solitary confinement in California prisons. Assembly Bill 2632 introduced, let me make this bigger. I keep forgetting to make this bigger for those seeing impaired. I want to make sure you're able to see it all. And let's blow this up, make this bigger, and I'll be in the background here. So now, if I can get through all these pop-ups here. All right, so now we're a little bigger, and now let's. Good Lord. Jeez. Can't keep popping up shit. All right, here we go. Capitalism. The bill called for limiting the use of what it calls segregated confinement, banning it for people under the age of 25 or older than 60, as well as for people with serious mental disorders. A decade ago, in my earliest days as a journalist, I covered California's extensive use of the practice. At the time, there were over 500 people in Pelican Bay State Prison who had been in solitary confinement for at least 10 years. Nearly 80 prisoners had been in solitary confinement for 20 years or more. I wrote about the California prisoner Armando Cruz and Alex Machado, who were thrown into solitary confinement. psychologically deteriorated and committed suicide. This is consistent with well-established research from around the world. Quote, the severe and often irreparable psychological and physical consequences of solitary confinement and social exclusion are well documented and can range from progressively severe forms of anxiety, stress, and depression to cognitive impairment and suicidal tendencies. Noted Noel Molsker, UN Special Report on Torture in 2020. Reporter, I think that's how you say it. Starting in 2011, prisoner hunger strikes against the state's use of solitary confinement broke out across the California prison system. This culminated in a legal settlement in 2015 between prisoners represented by the Center for Constitutional Rights and the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation to curtail the use of solitary. By earlier this year, the Center for Constitutional Rights noted that a federal judge found CDCR is continuing to violate the rights of prisoners, quote, relying on inaccurate and even fabricated confidential information to place individuals in solitary confinement, using dubious gang affiliations to deny them a fair opportunity for parole, and holding them in a restricted unit in the general population without adequate procedural safeguards. This is the system Governor Newsom has chosen to uphold. Just terrible. That's the guy who wants to be president, who thinks he can be president, Governor Newsom. So let's continue over here. Not with the related articles, but let's go. So Newsom's veto message indicates he viewed the law as overly broad and instead said he would take action himself. I am directing the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation to develop regulations. The people that's doing an abuse, develop regulations that would restrict the use of segregated confinement except in limited conditions. So the people who are doing the abuse now, create a system, put it on paper that restricts it, that regulates it, such as where the individual has been found to have engaged in violence in the prison. He said, he wrote, just laughable. It remains to be seen what that actually looks like. If CDCR will draw up meaningful regulations, how long putting those regulations will take, how many loopholes will be written into the regulation, whether CDCR will abide by those regulations, and whether CDCR will be held accountable for not following those regulations. That's key. You see why not putting it in the legislation, him vetoing it, if it's in legislation, you can hold them accountable through the law, through the courts. But if you say, no, veto, I'm just going to demand they do the right thing, they self-govern themselves. Who holds them accountable? What is the mechanism to hold them accountable? That's our governor, the guy who wants to be president. So vetoes this bill, the Mandela Act. So let me throw this back up there and continue to read. I think just a little bit more. Actually ends here. So we'll read the whole thing then. It remains to be seen I already read that part. Give me a second. Here we go. Needless to say, I am doubtful that CDCR, a bloated bureaucracy with a history of presiding over the rampant use of solitary confinement, will actually reduce the use of solitary confinement absent a court order or regulation. And I absolutely agree. And that's our governor over here in California. Governor Newsom upholds torture in California prisons with veto of the Mandela Act. Governor Newsom. So we're going to end that segment there. Short and sweet to the point segment. We'll cut some of these up hopefully soon and get that out to you. So now let's cover, I got a few minutes here. So let's cover CIA co-ops Harriet Tubman. Now this is pretty ridiculous. So let's cover this one. And I want to make sure I try to get to the Jackson Water one. So this is pretty ridiculous. So let's put it up on the screen. This one is from the World Socialist website. CIA co-ops. Oops. Co-ops Harriet Tubman. I think I said that right. Yeah. Double check my spelling. CIA co-ops Harriet Tubman. And this is the article we're going to cover from the World Socialist website. And if you're just joining, make sure you like this stream. The last target was 215. I'm almost sure we've hit that 215 goal that we had. Let's see. We're at 219. So 6 more and we'll be at 215 to hit that goal. And now, also, if you want to join our Substack so you can get notifications of streams just like this one. So let's get back to the story. CIA co-ops Harriet Tubman. CIA co-ops Harriet Tubman to boost its efforts to recruit spies and assassins. This one's by Genevieve Lee. Okay, I think that's right. Genevieve Lee. The Central Intelligence Agency made headlines last week after agency director William J. Burns cut the ribbon on a new statue of Harriet Tubman outside CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. Just astonishing. All right, so I'm here again. So let me put myself down here and I'll take this off. That'll make it better. I'm trying to keep up more of the article for you to see. All right, so let's do it this way. The statue of Tubman lived from 1822 to 1913, the great abolitionist and political activist of the American Civil War, now stands next to 2 others, Nathan Hale, an American spy executed by the British during the Revolutionary War, and William J. Donovan, considered the founding father of the CIA. Now ask yourself, let's pause. Why would a person in a racist country, in a racist organization like the CIA, why would this person qualify to be one of 3 statues for the CIA on the CIA grounds? Why would she qualify? So let's read on. The unveiling of the statue. The unveiling of the statue is the focal point of a broader CIA campaign around Tubman's legacy, a special tribute on the CIA website titled Honoring Harriet Tubman, a symbol of freedom and an intelligence pioneer. Attempts to rebrand Tubman as a 19th century version of a CIA spy. The piece is carefully written, distorted history of Tubman's life and the historical significance of her work. And there's the statue. There's the statue there. Let's continue. the piece couches Tubman's heroic work of rescuing slaves through the Underground Railroad in military garb, describing her as a leader, clandestine operations to gather vital intelligence as a spy. A Twitter post by the CIA announcing the piece reads, Harriet Tubman was not only a conductor of the Underground Railroad, but also a spy for the Union. One struggles to find the words to describe the level of absurdity surrounding the whole campaign. Commentary on the event reads like a skit showcasing the height of delusion and depravity in the ruling class. It was awesome. CIA Museum Director Robert Byer told the Washington Post after the ribbon cutting ceremony. Byer went on to explain to NBC News that Tubman's legacy, quote, was an example of intelligence work going behind enemy lines using safe houses and signals intelligence to get people to freedom. Tubman operated with ingenuity, stealth, courage, and selflessness. Byer said, these are all traits we want our officers to embody. These motherfuckers. It doesn't say that in the article. For those listening, that's my own characterization. But let's go on with this next quote. At first blush, the Washington Post writes, Tubman, a civil rights activist who famously and repeatedly broke the law, might seem an unlikely inspiration for today's foreign intelligence officer. But Byer said there was a lot of overlap between the ethos of the CIA and Tubman, who do they think they are fooling? And that's what I'm saying too. Tubman was part of a whole generation of anti-slavery opponents such as Frederick Douglass, John Brown, Sojourner Truth, and Wendell Phillips, who represented a profoundly egalitarian and democratic tradition. When they supported the military struggle of the Union against the Confederacy, as Tubman did, not just in words but in deeds, they were fighting on side of the democratic tradition against the monsters of slavery. Slavocracy is how they say it. Today, by contrast, the CIA defends countless reactionaries, dictatorial regimes around the world, including some like Saudi Arabia, where slavery is still practiced. If one were to search for the modern day equivalent of the oppressors against whom Tubman and her contemporaries fought, the plantation masters and their slave catchers, those who today shackle, enslave, and torture others, one would need look no further than the CIA itself. The record of CIA torture, crimes against humanity is matched in modern history only by Nazi Nazi and the Stalinist GPU KBD. Sorry, the lettering is getting me tongue twisted for those listening. The agency runs a worldwide network of criminality, deceit, and violence, operating through hundreds of black sites in every corner of the globe, used to carry out the interests of American imperialism with the most inhumane, depraved means. And I'll stop there. And the ridiculousness of the CIA co-opting Harriet Tubman to boost its efforts to recruit spies and assassins. Like, this is just pretty disgusting. This co-opting that the CIA has done. Like, I've seen a lot of co-opting, but the twisting that they're doing to the story and the legacy in the heroism of, or heroism, I should say, of Harriet Tubman is just disgusting. All right, so I got a few more minutes before I'm going to be jetting out here. I'm trying to keep it to 2 hours specifically, exactly. So about another 20 minutes to carry on or to continue here. But we're going to cut, or in this story here with the CIA co-opting Harriet Tubman. Now, the next story, I think this is the last story. We covered 1, we covered 2, we covered 3, we covered 4. We got 5 stories today. Is funds to aid Jackson Water was held up. And this is pretty, not eye-opening, not shocking, but just another layer of just terribleness by this empire and the people operating, the heads of this empire, the heads of states. And this next story, funds to aid Jackson water system held up as Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves rose. So let's held up. Oh my God, this is another pop-up place here. Okay. So I'm going to use this same. There we go. More pop-ups. Is this a pop-up? No. I'm going to use this same titling here for this segment. And this is our last and final segment here. Actually, let's change it a little bit here. And you see the subtitle. This is from Clarion Ledger. Let me just get this right. Yeah. Funds to aid Jackson held up. That's what the title will be here. Okay, fund held up. Funds to aid Jackson during this water crisis held up. I mean, it's just layer on top of layer, story on top of story of just the crumbling infrastructure, the crumbling. Oh, shoot. Sorry, everybody. Let me go back. There we go. I didn't know that was going to tear down the story. I thought it was going to take down that ad that was popping up there. You have limited articles remaining. Wow, great. So let's read. Funds to aid Jackson water system held up as Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves rose. Now, there is a video as part of this, but let's read first, and then we'll kind of talk about or get to the video. So let's go back to this view so that you can see more of the article here. So now let's continue, or let's make this larger, actually. All right, so let's read the article again from the Clarion Ledger. Years before people in Jackson were recently left without running water for days, Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves claims to have helped block money to fund water system repairs in the capital city. Yeah, I couldn't believe it too. So let's read. Reeves, a Republican, blames Jackson water crisis on mismanagement at the city level. The city's latest water troubles are far from its first, and they have stemmed from decaying infrastructure beyond one watership's treatment plant. The EPA said 300 boil water notices have been issued over the past 2 years in the city. Okay, so let's read. As Reeves climbed... All right, so that's my notification letting me know I have 10 minutes. As Reeves climbed Mississippi's political ladder, he cited his opposition to financially helping the Capitol as evidence of his fiscal conservatism. Jackson area lawmakers say the troubled water system is one example of Jackson's status as the political punching bag for Republican officials who control the legislature and state bond commission. This is key. Can I close this ad? Yeah, thanks. I don't know what I'm saying. Thanks to, but quote, we operate under the golden rule here, said Democratic Senator John Horn, I think that's how you say it, of Jackson. And the golden rule is he who has the goal makes the rules. In Jackson, 80% of residents are Black and 25% live in poverty. Repeated breakdowns made it unsafe for people to drink from their tap, brush their teeth, and wash their bodies without boiling the water first. At a September news conference, Reeves said water services was restored to most of the city only after the state stepped in to provide emergency repairs. He also said that he didn't anticipate a need for the legislator to approve more debt for Jackson water system. Not more money to fix it, more debt. The specter of another weather-induced water stoppage looms large for some residents. Winter is coming, said Brooke Floyd, a local activist. He's saying it's fixed, but it's not fixed. Let's continue. Water service was also cut off in parts of the city due to a winter storm in 2010. By June 2011, Reeves was locked in a Republican primary. So here's the story, the background of how this could have been avoided, but it wasn't. By June 2011, Reeves was locked in a Republican primary campaign for lieutenant governor. So at that time, he was locked in a primary as lieutenant governor. So this is before he's governor. He's running as lieutenant. As the Tea Party movement thrust government spending to the center of political debate, his opponent lambasted him for signing off on a bond debt increase. So his opponent lambasted him for signing off on this bond debt increase. With election day just weeks away, Reeves, who was the state treasurer, he was the state treasurer at the time. Remember, he's running for lieutenant governor, but at the time, he's holding the seat for state treasurer. That's key to understanding the backstory here. Appeared on a conservative talk show, a radio show, to push his track record as tight-fisted watchdog over state legislators eager to borrow. So he was, I'm strict on money. I'm very fiscally conservative. I'll get things back in order. That's the role he was playing at the time, right? So that's the role he was playing. So let's read some more. I'm actually going to take myself off so I won't be in the front of that. So let's read some more. Okay, so right here. The host, when he went on this show, the host, Paul Gallo, wanted to know why Reeves had voted to approve most bond projects as a member of the State Bond Commission. Why did he vote to approve so many? His voting record didn't tell the whole story, Reeves said. For instance, take the millions in bonds the city had requested to repair its crumbling water and sewer infrastructure. Quote, I've never voted against that because it's never gotten to the bond commission. Let me make sure you're catching the story here. So he's on this radio show The radio host wants to know why you have been, you voted to approve most bond projects. And then he says, wait a minute. His voting record, what you see as the final results, that doesn't tell the whole story. He says, because, for example, take the millions in bonds the city had requested to repair crumbling water. So the city asked to repair these things, asked to repair the damaged water infrastructure. He's saying, as an example, to show my voting record doesn't show anything, let me show you how other ways we stop voting for these bond requests. So that doesn't show it. So now let's go to his quote. I've never voted against against the bond for the water system. So we're talking about the Jacksonville water system. I never voted against that because it's never gotten to the bond commission. We are talking to the city of Jackson, Reeves said. We're talking to the city of Jackson, Reeves said. If we are not comfortable, we never bring it up for a vote. So if you don't want to have to vote on it, you just don't bring it up for a vote. So, instead of having to vote on a bond to fund the failing water infrastructure in Jacksonville, just so you don't have to be considered, you keep approving these bond debts, just don't bring it up for a vote. And he's the treasurer. So the bond commission decided not to consider issuing bonds for Jacksonville Water that had been authorized by the legislator, Reeves said. Let's just say there is an economic development in a town that doesn't have a lot of political power, Gallo responded. The bond commission can just refuse to take it up. Isn't that the same thing as a negative vote? It is the same thing as a negative vote, Reeves said. So the people of Jacksonville, or I'm sorry, not Jacksonville, the people of Jackson, Mississippi, and I'll put myself back on the screen, could not be going through this situation if now governor, then treasurer, Tate Reeves wasn't pulling these sort of shenanigans so he can be seen as some fiscal conservative. Now that majority black city is now paying for it. But he's elected governor. You can't, this shit is the layers and layers upon layers of corruption. And it's always at the hands of the working class, the poor, black, brown, indigenous people. So in order for you to get elected in an atmosphere of being very fiscally conservative during the Tea Party height, you sold the black and brown people out in Jackson out, and now they're paying for it. Just disgusting. So I think I'm going to end it there. I'm going to go to some comments, and then I'm going to get out of here pretty soon. Got maybe another 5 minutes to be on, and then I'm going to jet out. But some great stories. I'm going to try to bring stories like this not from now on, but more stories like this, more streams like this. So sorry, those that are looking for that eye candy who want to come in and have that sort of thing. I'm just choosing to have less eye candy and choosing to do less of that because the community needs more of these types of stories that we did during this stream. So again, be so generous as to like this stream, be so generous as to share this stream as that again, this is not the eye candy stream, so it takes a little more of sharing, a little more of retweeting to get the word out about it. So we're at 233 likes. Can we push to 250 likes? That would be great. And now let's go to your comments. I also got to see if there's a super chat because I forgot. I haven't even checked once. So my daughter is home. She has a bad cough. But nothing she can do. She just has to wait it out. All right, so let's go through some comments now. I'm gonna toss them up here. The Central Intelligence Agency made headlines last week after agency director William J. Burns cut the ribbon on a new statue of Harriet Tubman alongside CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. Absolutely. That's a quote from the article. What's the tale? Oh, never mind. I don't know what that is. It's almost like intrastate sanctions. I get it. We have to pinch off some cash from Favre because Zelensky took all his coke again. You guys are some funny people in the community. Lots of conversation going on. I think I'm going to look for any super to make sure there's no super chats here. Let's get those up. I'm looking for super chats here. Yeah, I was struggling. I had a bunch of struggling today, man. Technical difficulties. I had a couple of articles struggling. So yeah, I'm struggling today. Off my game today. But hey, it happens. Yes. This is why public education was always important. Teaches critical thinking skills. But parts of America does not like that. They want you to just be obedient zombies for the cause, I guess. All right, so let me now wind it down. I didn't see any super chats, so I'm going to assume there isn't any. Activist Summit, October 23rd. That's coming up. The fundraiser for JB has concluded. The target was $5,000. We end up raising $5,400. And thank you. There was I don't want to shout. I won't give their name because I can't remember if they said they want to make it public. But there was one person who put us over. We were at 5,400, and we thought, that was going to be it. And then at the last day, somebody shot us $1,000, and that's how we got to the target. All right, so what I'm going to do is play an outro video. This one is about the Deacons of Defense. I love this video. We don't need the popo. We can go to self-defending. We can defend ourselves. So yeah. All right. So I'm going to be heading out. I got to go pick up my daughter, do some other things, but thank you for joining me today. Like this stream on your way out and check out this video. Love the video. This is Deacons of Defense.
In 1964, the desegregation of Jonesboro, Louisiana High School was threatened by local authorities with fire hoses. 4 armed black men arrived with loaded shotguns. Without firing a shot, the mob dispersed and the authorities retreated. The students entered the school without incident. Those men were members of the Deacons for Defense, an armed citizens militia founded in Jonesboro, Louisiana. The Deacons were everyday citizens who by 1965 had organized into more than 50 chapters throughout the South in self-defense from the Ku Klux Klan.
In 1964, down in Louisiana, there were all types of demonstrations going on by freedom riders. Many times, the demonstrations would be met by armed white resistance. People were dying and being shot and intimidated because they were unarmed. And basically, because they were unarmed, they were also being denied the right to vote.
The Deacons protected civil rights workers for CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality, who were registering voters in Louisiana and Mississippi. They patrolled black neighborhoods and protected black churches where CORE was holding voting rights seminars.
These were regular, everyday people. They were not some paramilitary group. The thing that made them different is they were veterans from the Korean War. They were veterans from World War II. And so they did have the training and they did have the discipline that came from being veterans. Once the Klansman and the white citizen consular and the deputy sheriff that was wearing the sheet at night learned that these Deacons for Defense would shoot back, then they were not as readily willing to go and pounce upon them in the wee hours of the morning. Are you going to do something about it? Because now